Good morning, Europe. Good afternoon, Asia, and good evening, Australia. Thank you so much for joining us in our eWorkshop today. We'll talk about using REST API in eForms, and this is indeed a very highly requested subject. Before we dive into this very exciting topic, I'd like to remind you that we have super cool e-learning portal if you haven't checked it out yet. Please take a look because we're adding new courses as we go. Honestly, the content is forever growing and it's really, really cool. Not only that, but see, you can see these courses coming up this year. So we have a really good plan for this. The exciting part is that the next due course is coming soon.
Recording in progress.
Which is very relevant to today's topic, the REST call course, which is Workflow 3. You will receive an email notification if you subscribed to our newsletter that this is available. Now, to run through some housekeeping rules, you're all muted. If you have a question, please type it in the Q&A section. That is all you need to know. We will do our best to answer these as we go. The video, this content is recorded, so you will receive the notification of this as well, or just feel free to go our extranet and download it. So now I'd like to introduce your host and speaker for the day. I'm Adele, BDM from Australia, the one in the middle. My superstar co-host is Choi Gek, who absolutely rocks the Asia region. Choi Gek, would you like to say hi?
Hello, hi everybody. Thank you so much for joining us today. I'm so looking forward for this session. Thank you, Adele.
No trouble.
Yep.
And last but not least, it is my pleasure to introduce Vitor, Global Sales Engineer. He is a brand new member of the Therefore family. He's based in Brazil, and his Therefore knowledge is absolutely endless. So please welcome Vitor. And now, Vitor, over to you, and good luck to your first eWorkshop with us.
Thank you, Adele. Thank you, Choi Geek. Let's go. Let me share my screen. Can you? Thank you. Can you see my screen?
Yeah.
Okay, let's go. Hello, everybody. Thanks for joining. I'm very happy and excited to present this webinar about REST API in eForms. Two talks that I love to work, that is eForms and work with web calls, JavaScript and consuming REST API. So let me show you what we have planned to show you today. So we are giving you a quick introduction to REST API, an overview of Therefore REST API Catalogue. We are using a tool named Postman to test the REST API request and help us with the REST calls, introduction to eForms JavaScript, using pre-built code from Postman directly into eForms, update eForms components with REST calls response, and some final consideration, right? Let's go. Well, a solution analyst that I think is the most here, we have to integrate data between systems all the time. So integration is part of our lives as technical guys. So in API is the best way. You know, we can exchange files, we can consult in database, we can do a lot of things, but API is always the best way. And REST API is amazing. Is very modern. Is agile. Is easy to consume. So what is the REST API? REST API stands for representational state transfer, which means that when a REST API is called, it returns a representation of the requested research stage, which can be in JSON, XML, or plain text format like HTML, right? So it's the picture illustrated very, very clear what is a normal HTTP transaction with some attributes that I will not cover right now because it's not the objective here, right? And the good news is that REST therefore has a catalog of REST APIs with almost 200 endpoints. And for us that love to program, to code, this is amazing because it extends the possibilities we have to do our application, extend therefore functionality in a super way, because you can do almost everything. You can work with case, documents, categories, so it's amazing. You can easily check all available therefore API operations using the URL from your therefore installation tenant. So it's just to every therefore installation which has the API installed, you can consult very easily, just type the server name in this URL, right? What is need to consume a therefore REST API? So basically, we have to authenticate into the server, and for this, we use a therefore normal user. So it can be a named or concurrent user, but is a therefore user. Normal user as the end user that access the system, right? There are two ways to authenticate with main ways, right? To authenticate with REST, therefore REST API, you can use basic authentication, which is your user and password, or you can using JWT bear token, which you have to access a consume API and get the token from the server, and you can reuse this token as soon as you have other calls to do, right? You can work with XML messages or JSON. It's up to you. And about the headers of your request, the only mandatory parameter is the tenant name when you are working with therefore online, right? If you're therefore on-prem, you don't need to pass. There is a list of available parameters you can use, but no mandatory parameters, right? Let's start to talking about JavaScript in eForms. I think it's important to cover some concepts here about the JavaScript, because we are write our codes using JavaScript. eForms work with JavaScript, right? So JavaScript has some global variables. So you can, there are a lot of global variables, but I show you the most used. So data is the main used variable for sure, because it stores the value of each used component of the form. So is this every time you update, you type something in a field, this is the variable that is updated. Row is the same thing, but inside a data grid. So if you are working with data grid or edit grid, you can use the variable row. You can get the value directly using this variable. And a very, very common question is how to set a value of any field inside the eForm using JavaScript. So it's only that. You have to consume our global variable, therefore global variable, and dot field name, the field name you are working on, doc number, for example, equal value. Just that. You set the value for any field. When you work with data grid, that's a table component, you have to, it's a bit different. You start with data, the global variable, data grid, the index of the data grid is the line, is the row, right? The index you can, it means row here, and the field you want to work on, right? And set the value you want. Or if you inside of the component, inside the JavaScript this text code editor, you can use directly the value because it refers directly to the component and set value and some value you want to set it, right? I just two important commands here that I cover soon. These components are trigger change and trigger redraw. It's when you are working with buttons and you set values, as I show here, you uh, you have to redraw the eForm and apply the chains, right? I will show you in practice soon. Another advice here is that JavaScript is synchronous in single thread. So this means that JavaScript doesn't wait for the response of an asynchronous calls. So which is the case with REST call, right? So to handle asynchronous functions, I really recommend you use the async and await operators, right? That is, it is involved in a concept named JavaScript promises. I will not cover this in deeply, it's not the objective, of course, but I will show in the next slide, very simple, but it's very important because sometimes you write your code perfectly, it's working perfectly, there is no error message, but your browser doesn't render your code as you expect. It's not because your code is wrong, it's because the JavaScript by nature is not asynchronous, right? Another advice here, a tip here is try to use an IDE as soon as you can. It can be anything. It can be Notepad, Windows Notepad, Visual Studio Code, everything you want, because there for eForms we have a small box to work. So it's better as soon as your code turns more complex or huge, it's a good idea you move this code and work outside, then you copy and paste and insert into the eForms, right? Here's a very briefing about promise, right? I'm using this syntax and it is working for me very good, right? So it's very basic. You see my function run here. I want to get a document using a REST call, but this is not since I'm consuming a REST call, I'm getting data from the server. I don't know how long this call can the duration of this call. So if I don't set anything, maybe sometimes depending of the context, JavaScript doesn't wait that and go to the next variable, to the next instruction. So in the case here, for example, if this get document by REST call is not read, and I will alert this, I can, maybe it can be undefined because it runs so fast and move it to another instruction. And if I not control that, we can have this kind of problem. So to avoid this, just turn your function in async and using the await. So it forces the JavaScript to wait this REST API call before moving to the next instruction, right? Very easy. I will show you some examples using this in practice. As I told you at the beginning, I'm using this tool. There is a lot. I like to work with Postman. There is a free version with many features included. You can run your codes online on installed version. This is for test your REST API, work with your REST environment, right? I will show you soon. So let's go. Let's start in practice. Let's turn this more practical right now, right? Try it. Adele, we have any questions for now? Can I proceed with my
That's
practice
good,
session?
Victor. I didn't see any question being posted yet. I think you can proceed with your practical. Thank you.
Great, great, let's go. So here, this is Postman. I just opened here. I just to show you how to test your REST call. Maybe most of you already know, use Postman, but I need to show you because maybe someone is not used with that. So we need to consume a REST API? So we need the endpoint. Let me just share, split my screen here with our catalog here. Okay, it's easy just to make sure to avoid I move it from screen from other. Here is the catalog I just comment. You see a lot of endpoints. I love it. And so here, what do we need to do? First is the URL, is the endpoint you want to consume. And this is the endpoint. I want to consume get document right now. We want to get one document from therefore. So here is our endpoint and it's red. Since it is directly on your installation, in my case is in our tenant here, is just copy and paste here. The other important thing is the method. Here we are using post for this endpoint, and there I need to set the user. So as I said, I'm using a basic authentication with a webinar. This user is a named user, a normal therefore user, as I said. My header here contains the tenant number, tenant name, because I'm using therefore online. So I need to pass the tenant name inside my header parameters. And I need to pass the body. Normally, you just need to go here into our catalog and copy and paste here and change the parameter as your need, right? In this case, I could remove everything here. I can remove everything here. Just the only mandatory parameter is doc number. But I will add this because I want to the index value, some things here. And here is my document number. So let me just show you, for example, here is the document number, the document ID. Sorry. Oh, sorry, I clicked it 2 times. And I'm using a normal document ID here, right? Just show you again. And if I just run this code, I receive all the request, right? So I can check, oh, it's working properly. It's my category. Oh, the index is exactly the same I have into my navigator. I can confirm it's working properly. So it's amazing. As soon as you finish here, okay, it's working, but you don't want your code here. You want your code running inside your eForm. Postman has an amazing feature that is you can create code. Postman create for you code automatically for you. So it uses all parameters you use it on your request and just create a code. There is a lot of language that it automatically creates this code. Of course, we are using JavaScript because eForms work with JavaScript. So I recommend you to use Fetch, JavaScript Fetch, but some people likes to work with XHR. No problem. It's up to you. I like to work with Fetch. So this is a code based on a Fetch library. So you just need to copy and paste here. And if you move to your eForm, Let me maximize here. So I have an eForm and I have a button here. So in a button, you can create custom code. I will show you right now. So by default, our button, when you include a new button, it's the action is set it by as submit. But you don't want as a button to submit things to the server. We want it now a button to embed a custom code. So I can do whatever I want with this code. I can also include a library here. If I copy and paste a library and try to use, for example, a barcode library and copy and paste and use that, it worked. So it's amazing. This custom function, this custom action is amazing. So here is exactly how you do right now. I copy the code from the Postman and I will paste here right now and save. It's done. We have the REST call configured on our side now. So if you test it, let me test it right now, just for I will show you. I will open the Chrome just to show you that it's working good, right? So if I press the button, you see, we already connect to the Therefore server using REST API inside the eForm. It's working, as you can see. It's on the console. We want to use some information from this response and probably insert into any field from into some form field, right? So here, let's do that. Let me show you how to insert code. As I said, to set a variable. So here, let me make some changes. So here is our REST API from the Postman. You don't need to change anything from above because it's working. We tested right now. So, but I don't want to only console. I want to prepare my code here. So here is when you insert your code inside this then after this then result. So you just need to put these curly brackets here and start coding from here. The another important change you have to do is our response type is text, but you don't want to work with text. We want to work with JavaScript libraries, objects, sorry. And so for this, I want my response in a JSON format, right? So now I can set whatever you want here. Let me just, down here. So let's start. So here I will set a field name. Let me save here. I want to set this field doc number with the doc number received from the my REST API, right? So the first thing I have to do is go to the API and get my proper name. This is the name of this field for API, right? And go back here and just start coding. So right now, I am using my global variable data that contains all my data objects. Then using my doc number, my field name, right? Equal, I use my variable here. This is my result, right? And dot, I have to know what I want of the result. Let me just change the interface here, go back to the Postman. This is what we receive it here right now. So I want this doc number. For this, you can see it's exactly into the root object. So it's exactly into the root. So for accessing this property inside this object, I just need to insert the result doc number. If I just want this information here, I have to follow the three here. So in this case, index data dot index data items string dot string index data dot data value. You see, but in our case, we are just using doc number here. Okay, let's go back to the eForm and Control C, Control V here and try. It should work fine, right? Let's save it and test. Let's go. I want to load here. No, not working. And I show you why it's not loaded. It's exactly because I don't know if you remember that there are two uh, uh, comments that I showed you. So these comments are very important right now. So here is the same setting here. I set the data value but now I want to refresh my form. I need to refresh my reform. So I have to use this component. This component is fixed. It's another global variable. My field trigger change and components, my field trigger redraw. Always these two magic commands, right? You just need to know that, okay? You just need to change your field or the component you want to refresh, right? If we run this here, from here, it works properly. So I'm getting the doc number 12274, right? So you see, we move it forward. We move it to, we now have how to consume a REST API inside the eForms and populate a text field. It's amazing, right? But another very common question is, okay, for a field, it's just a field, but when we work with table can be multiple rows. So how can we work with tables, right? So, you know, we are using JavaScript. You can work, if you want to show tables and don't want to do from scratch using HTML, for example, you can use in data grid. And I show you a very simple way to populate data grid using a similar code that we performed before. Okay, let's go. So here is the code I want to show you. It's already prepared. First, let me show you how it works. So you see it working. I just populate these fields with my these fields populated using, let me change again to my Postman here, sorry, to this other call, execute simple query. This execute simple query is a search endpoint. It performs as exactly a search exactly when you are in the navigator and you want to find a document and you double click inside into the category. Is exactly the same, right? And here I am receive a response with a lot of documents, probably 5, 6, I don't know. And those documents are from, if you can check here in sorry, I move it to Navigator right now. And this is the information I'm filtering now. I think I'm using this PO number as filter, I think. So you can check here. Yes, this PO number finishing with 3rd, right? This is the data. If I insert a new data right now, you see it updated into our eForm, right? So let's go back here and let me show you how you can work, how to do that. So here's my code. And you remember that I said to try to use an IDE, and let's go this right now. I use an IDE. I'm using Visual Studio VS Code, but as I said, you can use whatever you want, whatever tool you want. Just copy and paste here to be more easier to show you the code, right? So you can see here, this code is from Postman. It was not me that I didn't take care about this. It's working. This is my logic here after the second then here. So from now, what do we have? The first thing is I'm working with data grid. My data grid is named DG1. So the first thing I do is refresh, is clear my data grid. To avoid any problem, if I just double click into the button, or if there is old value inserted, so it's a good practice. You just clear your data grid. Then you have for, okay. I'm using a JavaScript, plain JavaScript here to just let you understand. I'm not using map or filter, this kind of amazing features from JavaScript, because maybe it can be confusing to you to understand, for some to understand. So I just want to show you a normal loop here. So what is the trick here? You see, I'm working with this button. Let me change here to the test form. Yeah, this button. So you see, as every time we click, it creates a new line. So this form does exactly this, but by code, right? So 3 lines to do that. It's a for based on the length of my result, and it's done. It creates the how many rows my data grid should be. So this is one step. The other step is I have to set all fields from my data grid, right? So it's the same. It's exactly the same. I need another for, and I'm using the length of my data grid. Now my data grid is blank, but has a red, for example, if my response has six rows, my data grid is 6 rows, but it's blank. And I just set, as I show you on the example that I just commented. So it's exactly the same thing, date. But now I'm using data grid. Data grid has rows. I need to inform my I here is the row, right? So it starts row 0 because it's, array is 0 based. So row 0 and the name of the field that I'm working is the same, exactly the same thing as a text box, right? And now I'm just setting with the value of my response. Okay, so here this is my response. I just let me show you what is this. So let me open again the Postman here. Sorry, I don't want this. So here you have the response. You see, our response has a carry result object as root. Then I want to go to the result rows. That is the other property that I want to get information. And after that, I'm going to the index value here. So this is why I'm using. So I have a variable here rows. So this is my rows, and my index value is an array. So I have more than one value here. So I need to inform which index I want to work. I want to work with this value or this value. If is this value, the index is 0. If it is this value, which is the case, that my item, I want to work with index 1. You see? Very simple, right? And the same thing for the quantity, unit, and the two magic commands here to refresh my eForm as soon as I'm setting values, right? This is a very simple way. You maybe you are saying that, well, I can do different. It's much more. Yes, there is a lot of ways to do that, but this is very, very useful, very, very quick to development, for demo, for even for final delivery. It's okay. It's work fine properly, right? Okay, let's go. Let's go back to our eForm right now. And here, let's run from here. Yeah. So here I have my eForm populated. Let me show you in live that you see that it's working good. I will add a new line here in my category. So just give me a second here to create a new document. Let me just is 30, yes. New document. I will select my PO, this PO, anything here. Right? So there is a new line here. If I go back into my eForm, it's rendered. So you see, I'm live here, I'm connected. Okay, so this is how to populate a data grid, right? It's a very common, I think this is the way you can have access to this code and see this video, right? So the other thing is that's very important. I'm using button, but sometimes you want that your data grid is already start filled as soon as your eForm is loaded. So in this case, it's exactly the same. It's exactly the same code. In this case, I just use this. Sorry, it's hidden. Let me go back. I use this text box for insert a code here, and I use the same button because it's the same, right? So here I just clicking the button again, but I can insert the code directly here. It will work. So this is another place that I work with my codes. When I have a form that the dynamic is the user press things, I use button because I will process after the use click. But if I want something to be automatically, as I said, populate the data grid as soon as the form is loaded, or if I have to call RESTful after some trigger, I don't know, I normally use a text field to do that. And I name it this text field as text field for code and hide it. So I hide this text field and insert data here. So the first one here is load only one time. Your code will be running only one time. And this one, calculate feed, every time you have a change in any component of your eForm, it runs the code. So you have to take care when you work with calculate value, because it will run every time you change anything in your form. So because we are working with REST calls, we don't want to make unnecessary calls to the server just because I set my code here. You have to handle it or take care about it, right? So, but it's very useful. Sometimes you have to go, we need to check one field to perform a REST call. So this is the correct field, right? Let me show you another another eForm more close with real case here, right? Yes, this is the good one. So I have this eForm that I've prepared uses the same category, the same database from the other eForm, but here I'm using like a real case here. So this eForm is the objective here is you select PO, for example, and you get all the PO line items. So this is like a panel for some person of accounting department. So it can check the value, the invoice, for example, and check what is the quantity I received? 3. 3. Oh, it's wrong. So it's a very simple panel. I can confirm the receipt or not and make a workflow after that. So you see, I'm using JavaScript REST call, obviously, to get these PO line items, but it's dynamically. As soon as I select another one here and render, it's another PO, so another line items, right? Every time I change, it's exactly the same. So you see, is exactly the same development that I just show you on the other eForm, but now using a real world application here, right? So you see, let me show you how to work with this dynamically, because this is very common. We don't want to make our code fixed like only one condition. We normally use you let the user select the condition they want. So this is the best, right? The best way, right? So let me show you. Let me just open the design eForm. So here I have a button. It's a normal data table lookup. I didn't need to perform any REST API from myself. Obviously, eForms do some REST API here. And this is the code, right? I use Control-C, Control-V, copy and paste on my Visual Studio just to show you the code. As I said, here I'm using promise, a sync operation to use this await, right? I don't know if I need it, but sometimes it worked with without await, but a lot of case I have problems. So I prefer to work with this using this architecture here, right? So first I just start my application, make sure that there is a selected PO, because if not, it will create an error, because I need a PO number to get my line items from PO. So here is my function. You see, is exactly this is the Postman control copy and paste. But now I'm using variable here. Here. You see, I pass the PO number as parameter of my function, and this is my condition. So my condition now is the PO number, is not fixed value. So and I just this function doesn't do anything about just return the response from server, right? I'm not populate anything here. As you can see, I'm just return the response, right? And I create a new function to populate the field. So I pass my response here. So I use the wait operator to be sure that all my line items is read to be used. Okay, then after I execute my second function here, and I pass exactly the response from the server, and is exactly the same. I clear the data grid, I make the loop for create the rows I need to fill in, and my loop to assign values to the field, right? Exactly the same I already covered here. The only difference is that here I'm using async await commands, operators uh, to make my function as async, right? Yeah, so is exactly the same here. I think there is nothing to show now. Let me just open my eForm again, and I will show you another example here of REST API that handles into an HTML. So instead of handle into a data grid, I'm handle my response into a normal HTML table. So here I am much more flexible to customize, to add value, but it's the it needs more code. You have to be to fill all the values manually, right? Let me just show you quickly here. So here there is the component here, JavaScript, HTML. Where is HTML? HTML is the HTML component. And you just insert your HTML. So my HTML is very simple. There is a table with my header, and I have my JavaScript. As I said, I like to work my codes in text field. So here is my code. You see, I have to create here an append JSON append function to create manually. Probably who works with JavaScript knows what I'm talking about, but it's manual. There is no way. But I just want to show you that I may work with REST API here, but and render a HTML page. So I can do anything with when I work with HTML, right? I can using a library as I said, and you see it's exactly the same. My function render the HTML table. I just needed to add a new function here to populate manually, right? Okay, there is another one that I want to show you very similar that, but instead of a table, it is not here. I think it's here. This one, it is showing a test, like a test. For example, we have some questionnaires, some tests stored in there, and I want to generate this questionnaire inside my eForm. As you can see, it's an alternative test here. And we have a workflow to check if the user select what is the correct answer. So we are using REST API here to get the questionnaire, render my HTML page as an alternative task here, and I can submit and work with my workflow, my normal therefore operation, right? This is another case, very similar to HTML. Here, this part here is HTML component, right? I don't need to show you, the code is very, very similar. And there is a lot other, oops, there's an error, but it's okay, it's running. It's in French because it's under the French tenant, okay? So this is for post invoice, so it's very interesting. I hear this eForm, we have only 3, but the accounting person select, for example, the vendor. I can select all the invoice from this vendor and post it. So this is posting. Oh, sorry, there is some problem. I don't know why, but just to show you, I'm sending it to a workflow, therefore workflow, and post it to some ERP. It creates a text file to send to the ERP, right? You can work with this kind of things here. Is not, of course, REST API, but you see that the powerful, how REST API is powerful, how therefore REST API can do amazing things here. This panel is very, very interesting, very useful for accounting, account payable, for accounting people. So they can check, for example, the values, make them, and be sure before posting the invoice. So it's amazing, just to show you the powerful of this. Okay, I think in terms of demonstration is that I think I cover everything that I'm proposing to do. Hope I didn't forget anything. So Charky, can you tell me if
Very
there
good.
any question?
Yes, definitely there are questions being posted on our Q&A, and you also can click on the Q&A to see what are the questions you have. Okay, there is one question which is already answered, which is basically Tasso asked that whether can we have a script to automatically populate the data grid. I think Victor already showed you how to do that. And then there's 2 more questions which is still open. One of them is that can we use REST Core API to calculate distance between 2 locations?
Yeah, yes, for sure. We can do Google, for example. Google has nice Google, Microsoft, Amazon, AWS. So they have great APIs, REST APIs that you can use to work with geolocations, right? You need their API account, an API account, and you can consume those APIs directly into eForms. The same thing, there is no limitation to use API only for API. No, you can access API for any third-party system, right? So yeah, you just need to consume these eForms and of course work with them. You have to calculate by your code, but it's totally applicable here in eForm, right? There is another question. I've got an eForms with more than 100 fields. Is it possible to feed quickly all of them with passing the doc number in the URL? Yes, for sure. Yes. You can use the parameters here into your URL with the doc number. And as I show you, just insert your code here into a text field here at the full value. So just copy and paste your code here and your you have all fields populated with this, right? There is another question. Is it possible to enter data into a text field with barcode scanner or mobile phone camera as barcode scanner? With barcode scanner, possible to enter data. Maybe. It depends. We are not working with the operational system from from the PC that the user is running the eForm. So when you work with barcode scanner, you are working with a device, and there are devices that you can access, that you can work with API. You can work with web services. I already saw something like that. It depends your device, right? Because JavaScript doesn't work with your machine directly. It doesn't have access. There is ways to do that, but it's a bit complex. Normally, we are ready to consume APIs, right? It's the same thing for mobile phone camera. We have to access endpoint for that, right? I can see any other questions. Show the script for auto-populate the grid. There is another one. Please show the script for auto. Yes. It's already answered, right? Okay.
Okay. Looks like we have answered all the questions which is posted on our Q&A. We also have some question which is on our chat, which is most of them already answered. And thank you so much for all your attendance. I think this is a very interesting topic, and which is we have so much of demand. And we also see that all of you love this topic. And I would say a big thank you to Victor for sharing your best practices and also your knowledge with all of us. Thank you very much, and see you next time.
Okay, thanks. Thank you, everyone.
And bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Vitor, and have a good day all.
Thanks.
Goodbye.
Bye-bye.